The universe is in motion. Everything is moving. It's in constant circulation. And that's the title of the talk today, is circulation. Things are not stagnant. And when you think about the nature of the universe, we're on a planet that's spinning on its axis and circling the sun. And that gave us the celestial mechanics this week of the summer solstice as a reminder of the way things are moving and changing and shifting. So we're past the longest day of the year and going into lovely long days of summertime, warmth. Plenty of warmth going on for right now with a heat dome in process. But everything is in motion. There's a circulation that's going on. The universe is not stagnant. Everything is moving all the time. One of the things that I like to do during a meditation is tell people to get as still as they possibly can. So you become completely still, so you're not moving at all. And it's an illusion because you are on the surface of a planet that is spinning, and that planet is also circling the sun, and it's part of a solar system that's moving through the galaxy, and it's part of a universe of expanding galaxies. And the calculations are, even when you are perfectly still, you are moving at an aggregate speed of 67,000 miles an hour. Everything is in motion. And there's a circulation that happens. There's an ebb and a flow. There is keeping things in motion, keeping things circulating is important. And when you talk about circulation, people almost immediately think about the heartbeat and our blood flow. And that's important. That is our circulatory system is really important. And in fact, there's good things that happen in every part of our circulation. As the blood flows to our cells, it's delivering oxygen and it's taking away whatever the waste products are and bringing it back through the rest of our body and pumping through our heart to keep everything moving, and it's going through our lungs, which is where we get to expel whatever it was that was collected up from the cells, and we also get to get replenished with the oxygen that we're going to need for the next trip through the system. And it's not like you can look at part of it and say, this part of our circulation is good, but that part is unnecessary because it's all important. We think about water, and gently down the stream, and the river is moving in a particular direction. And if you ask people, good or bad water, generally everybody says good. But we've also had the experience of more water than is necessary. And when water is moving, it's wonderful. If it's moving a little too quickly on the outside of our car, that can cause a difficulty and sweep the car away. So being in the flow, being in the perfect place in that circulation is actually really important. When water stops moving, when the circulation stops, there can be a problem, especially if the water stops while it's inside, let's say, the wall of your house. That can lead to much more in the way of trouble and problems than we particularly want to have. So it's about that flow. It's about being in that perfect place of balance, of appropriateness. Where's the circulation happening? We're getting into the very hot time of year. A lot of folks are turning on air conditioners. And especially when you have central air conditioning, the thing that everybody's aware of where the air conditioning vent is and where the cool air is blowing out. But there's an equally important vent, which is the air conditioning return. It's another vent somewhere in your house that you probably don't notice, and that's where the air goes back into the air conditioning system, because the whole system is based on circulation. It brings in the room temperature air, it goes through the air conditioning system, it cools it down, and then it blows it back out into the room, where it warms up a little bit by cooling us down, and then it goes back into the system. If you block the return, the air conditioner stops working, or it stops working as well. That circulation is really, really important. My brother rebuilt a house some number of years ago, and one of the snooty high-end features that they added was instant-on hot water. So no matter where you were, up on the third floor, you turned on the hot water, and it was hot immediately. And the way they did that trick is they put in an extra pipe to each of the faucets, and they let the hot water go up there, and just a little tiny bit of the hot water dripped back down into the water heater. And it kept on circulating. But what happened is there was always a flow of hot water even when the faucet wasn't turned on. And it didn't waste any water. A little bit of energy to keep it warm, but that made a change in the way things are working. Yesterday evening, the weather was delightful, so we got a chance to open the windows. And we have a whole house exhaust fan. And the way the exhaust fan works is we turn on the fan, and it pulls air into the house through whatever windows happen to be open and blows it out through the attic. It's magical because any window can become a breeze. We can get that air to come in through any of the windows. If you're in a house that doesn't have an attic exhaust fan and you've got a couple of windows and you only open up one of them, it's not going to get nearly as cool and breezy as if you opened two of them on opposite sides of the house, because that flow is important. The flow is what keeps everything moving and what creates the change in experience that we're having. I mentioned gently down the stream, you get the visual of the river, of, that vast amount of water that's moving from uphill to downhill. And that's very peaceful and very natural. And you take that and we put it into a context where we can actually get even more benefit from it, is we let the water collect in a reservoir. And that's not stagnant. That's keeping the potential of the water in the reservoir, so that when we choose to have some water someplace downhill from there, we open up a tap and the water comes through from the reservoir, because we have had it and we are allowing the circulation to happen in a way that the timing is going to work for us. So the flow is always going on. We can participate in what is flowing, how the flow is working, and how we're participating in it. Another area, especially in metaphysics, where we talk about flow and circulation a lot, is in terms of money, finances. Because you ask people, if they want to have a lot of money, and they say, yeah. And you say, well, if I gave you 10,000 pounds of $5 bills, what would you do with it? And usually the answer is, I'd put it in the bank. And the answer is, then you don't have it. Then you don't have that big lump of $10 bills. Then you have something different, or you've changed it, you've converted it, you've turned that money into a different form that's going to be more useful to you. Or they say, I'd spend it. In which case, of course, you once again don't have it. So the idea isn't to have the huge amount of money. The idea is to have that potential, to be able to use that in a way that's going to bring good and uplift and some measure of success into life. So I would imagine that all of us have had a time in our life where there's been plenty. We've been flush with cash. There's plenty of money to pay for everything that needs to be paid for. We're done with the mortgage. We're done with whatever it happens to be. And we're in a period where we've been prosperous and are feeling that there's plenty of money. And almost everybody has had that experience at some point in their life. And we've also had an experience of scarcity. Looking at the bank balance, looking at the bills that have come in and saying, there is no possible way that I can make this work. I don't know what to do. We're throwing our hands up in the air. And it's not the money. If you take a particular amount of money, it is possible to have the plenty experience and the scarcity experience with exactly the same amount of money. There are people who, if they have $10,000, they're set for life. And other people, if all they have is $10,000, they're ruined. The important thing to remember is that it is currency. Money is currency. It's part of the circulation. It's part of the flow. It's not about having it. It's about being in the flow of that prosperous experience so that we have an adequate supply to meet our requirements at this particular time. And it's not just to pay my bills. The way that we like to say it is, I have plenty of money to spend, to share, and to save. Plenty of money to spend, to share, and to save. It's not about having it. It's about being in the flow and having that flow, that circulation, be in balance. And I'll do a little bit of a plug for tithing. It's a spiritual principle. It's the one where the Lord says, prove me now, if I will not pour out a blessing. And it was about tithing. It was about taking a percentage, and in the case of tithing, it's 10%, although it works regardless of what the percentage is that we're doing. It's about identifying the source of our spiritual nourishment and giving to that. And we give of our treasure, our money. We give of our time and our talents. We give of our intentions. So we get in the flow where we are supporting that which is spiritually supporting us. And the amazing thing that happens, and you can ask around to the folks who are here in the celebration today, is that when we get into that flow of circulation, of financial circulation, the more we give, the more we get back. It's like cleaning out the air conditioning returns. If they're all clogged with dust, we're not going to get as much cool air out of the air conditioner as if they're clean and everything is flowing properly. It's counterintuitive. The way to get more is to give more. Really? Well, yeah, if you got a reservoir that's overfull, then you've got a crisis of like, what are we going to do? We got to open the dams and spill out some of the water. And spilling out the water gets it in the flow. It's not going into one of our faucets, but it's moving. So that movement, that circulation is tremendously important. And what tends to happen is if we've been in a time of scarcity is when we're contracting, when we're not letting the flow go out because we're paying attention to the flow that's coming in. Try it sometime. Identify the source of your spiritual nourishment. What feeds you? What fills you? Make a donation. Make a donation. Make another donation and see what happens. Because the scripture says, prove me now. It's the only place in the Bible where there's a guarantee. It says, if you do this, it will work. So you can try that. And the circulation happens, and it happens in our finances, and it happens in our air conditioning returns, and it happens in the breeze. And it happens all the time, sometimes in unexpected ways. So a dear friend of mine went through a cardiac procedure, and after the cardiac procedure, it turned out that he needed to get a pacemaker. And he is diligent about taking care of his health. He's aware of everything that's going on with him. And he knows that his resting heart rate is about 45 beats a minute. And that's fine. And they put in the pacemaker, and they could set it for 45 or 60. And they set it for 60 beats a minute. And he thought, well, that's unnecessary, but okay. So he was getting used to life at 60 beats per minute. And that's the minimum. The pacemaker will let it go up from there, but then that's where it minimized down. So as he was getting used to the experience of having his resting heartbeat be 60 beats per minute, he noticed that when he was asleep, normally his feet would get very, very cold. And they were no longer getting very, very cold. And he also noticed that when he slept on his side, he'd get pins and needles on whichever side that he was sleeping on. And that stopped too. That went away, and he does not have, so now he can sleep on his side, and his feet don't get cold. And it obviously is because of the pacemaker and because he's going at 60 rather than at 45. And the interesting part is that he had not mentioned any of this to his doctors. Because really, my feet get cold when I sleep. You don't take that to the doctor. I sleep on my side and I get pins and needles on my arm. Who tells the doctor about that? That's like, stop sleeping on your side, and you don't want a medical intervention for that. So when the circulation changed, when he had a change in his circulation because his heartbeat is now higher than it was before, he had some unintended consequences. And those aren't always bad. Sometimes an unintended consequence is something that's really good. I had another story that came from Breen. They have their two little dogs. Usually Jack, the big dog, is the one that gets in trouble. Yesterday, the little dog found herself at the animal hospital because she'd eaten a few things that were inappropriate for the dog to be eaten, and they needed to be removed from her digestive system. Breen is actually picking her up from the vet now. She's fine. The obstructions have been removed. It's the comical stories about the sorts of things that you pull out of the dog's stomach, which I'm not going to get into. But our digestive system is another example of circulation. Our digestive system is a hollow tube that goes all the way through. And when something gets stopped up somewhere in there, when the flow stops, that causes a problem. All sorts of different problems depending on where it is. So having that flow, perfect assimilation, perfect elimination, is important. And if you haven't thought about that lately, then congratulations. Good for you. And isn't that wonderful? And if there's an issue that's going on, In so many cases, it's about being in the flow. It's about reminding us of that circulation that's always happening everywhere, and that we can be in the flow in every area of our life. And if we got plenty of money, and everything is going perfectly, and something is obstructed in the GI system, we're not paying any attention to the money. We're not paying any attention to the money. Being in the flow, having that working properly, having your heartbeat and your blood flow working properly is wonderful. It is a gift. And if you haven't thought about it before I mentioned it now, then consider gratitude for the blessing that you don't have to think about that. That circulation is happening automatically for you and through you and as you. Circulation is always happening. It's always something that's going on for us. And as we're aware of it, we can become more grateful for it and invite an even more uplifting experience from it and in it. Avoid stagnancy. One of the things that I used to dislike the most about when I went into a workplace or an organization is when somebody said, well, that's the way we've always done it. And I love to examine that and say, okay, if that's the way we've always done it, then is that the way we want to do it now? Perhaps there's a better way. And I'm not going to lean on, oh, well, it's tradition. Now, it may turn out that the tradition that we have and the style and the technique that the organization has for doing something is perfect. And there's a good, rational, understandable reason for it. But to do something because that's what we've always done is where stagnancy comes in. Let's refresh it. And let's refresh it by considering the whole thing, and maybe what we continue doing is exactly the same thing we were doing before. But then it's because, well, we thought about it, and this is the best way to do it. Let's consider, am I bringing my best self to the situation? Am I in the flow of the good that I'm looking for? Is there something that I can change? Is there something I can add? Is there something that I can take away? Because usually there's a new possibility at hand. And sometimes that possibility is just that reminder that, yes, this is fitting together in sweet perfection. I am prosperous. I'm living in plenty. I am supporting the source of my spiritual good. I'm keeping the air conditioning returns dust-free. And the good is unfolding. And that is called gratitude. Gratitude for the good that's already here. So as we embark upon summertime, make that be an activity that you get involved in. Be aware of where the circulation is happening in your life. And invite in more of whatever it is that you describe as good. Because sometimes a little more water is wonderful, and sometimes a little water is not wonderful. It's about being in that perfect place, that perfect time, that perfect alignment. Because you deserve it. Because you are wonderful. So it is.